Well, good morning.
Good morning.
I think our Pentecostal roots are showing. For those who didn't grow up Pentecostal, as my family has a long history of Pentecostalism coming out of Oklahoma. And so it feels very familiar, but also a little disjointed this morning for me. I know when we're in the big sanctuary, we should be a little bit more formal. It's a little low-key. It's nice. You also, I don't know for the other speakers, but it's sometimes when you hear the this thing over you, you feel like you're having to yell. So hopefully our genuineness comes across. We're not yelling. We're meeting you where you are. I'm Pastor Ben. I'm the interim pastor. I see a few new faces, or at least faces new to me, and I just want to offer you a hearty welcome. Let you know that you are fully acknowledged and included here. If you have questions about this place after today, I would recommend that you send an email to admin at mccportland.org and connect with the pastoral care team or our admin in order to find out more information. And certainly feel free to stick around for a little while after service and ask your questions or just make sure that's what you're doing and make you feel welcome. We want you to feel that for sure. I didn't know if I was going to say anything, but I think I will. The world is a weird place right now, but this week, James Dawson died. Dr. Dawson was a psychologist who started a Christian ministry called Focus on the Family that had a heavy impact on a lot of people my age and younger, probably all of us to some degree, but in particular, his ministry served to start the purity movement and purity culture and all sorts of sexual confusion, and in particular, when it came to queer youth, as I was coming of age and finding myself, his directives as a psychologist to parents was to that will force them back in the door to stay straight. Essentially, that was his model. Now, as a clinician, as a therapist myself, I know how highly destructive that advice was, and he was persistently throughout his career by relevant sources questioned for what he was putting out in the world. And so it's kind of this weird moment when someone like that dies, and to be wanting to be a gracious Christian and also wanting to recognize the level of death that he created in this world and hell for many of us through his influence. And so I just wanted to reflect on that there's pain. That brings up pain, and that's okay. And you can bring that pain here as you are amongst friends. We are here for one another. Claudia, I really appreciated your insight into that as you pray for us. But I just want to call us in during this time to hear a story about a woman who was healed by the touch of Jesus and what that can mean for us. Amen? Amen. Yeah. Let's begin with a simple image. Picture a woman in a crowded room, perhaps a workplace, a church hall, or a family gathering. She's been there for years, quietly enduring, bent over the weight of expectations and assumptions in silence. She's competent, she's kind, and she's faithful, but no one really sees her. Now imagine someone walks in and truly sees her, not just glances by to make sure that she's there and make sure she's okay. And in that moment, something shifts. She begins to stand up straight, shoulders back, confidence restored, pain gone. This is the story we find in Luke 13. And it's not just a healing story. It's a theological revolution. Let me repeat the words from Luke again. Now he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And just then there appeared a woman with a spirit that had crippled her for 18 years. She was bent over and was quite unable to stand up straight. When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said, "Woman, you are set free from your ailment." When he laid his hands on her, immediately she stood up straight and began praising God. Process theology, as articulated by John Cobb, reimagines God, not just as an omnipotent ruler, but as a responsive, relational presence. God is in genuine interaction with the world and cares about what happens in the world, and hence changes. This is the God Jesus embodies in Luke 13. He sees the woman. He initiates healing. He responds to her suffering, not with force, but with presence and compassion. Marjorie Sukoki adds, God works with the world as it is in order to bring it to where it can be. Prayer changes the way the world is, and therefore changes what the world can be. In this story, Jesus doesn't wait for the woman to ask. Did you notice that? In this, he doesn't wait for her to ask. He interrupts the liturgy, what we're practicing right now, to bring healing. This is divine action as co-creative process, not domination. Not a human hierarchy of order and rules, agendas, or strategies. Only each member of the kingdom working together for what is good. This woman is unnamed, bent over, and likely invisible to her community. Elizabeth Schultzler-Forenza critiques how such women are often cut off and forever lost in the historical silence. But Jesus does something radical. He calls her daughter of Sarah and Abraham. Ben Whittington III notes this expression, daughter of Abraham, had been applied to Israel as the nation as a whole, but never before referred to an individual. By using this title, Jesus implies that she is worthy of, she is as worthy of his concern and healing as any Jewish man. This is a theological affirmation of her full inclusion in the covenant community. She is not just healed, she is dignified, she is named, and she is accurately seen. Letty Russell, a pioneer of feminist theology, once said, the role of the church is to overcome the fear of difference and to break the bars that keep us apart.
Yes.
Would you like that?
Yes.
Jesus breaks those bars. He redefines Sabbath, not as restriction, but as liberation. Artist Barbara Schwartz painted a powerful image of this moment in the Luke story. Jesus stooping to the woman's level, hand extended, eyes locked on hers. It's a visual theology of empathy. Empathy is a political term now for some reason. And art invites us to see differently. In this story, Jesus sees what others overlook. He centers the marginalized. Who are the bent over ones in our communities? Who are we failing to see? how do we keep what structures do we keep up that are keeping people out? The synagogue leader is upset. It's always fun when we upset the leaders. I'm okay to be upset, by the way. I know that I'm the leader. Please upset me. Sorry. Not because you already do, but that's another story. Not because the woman is healed, but because the healing violates religious norms. Chelsea Harmon calls this spiritual theft. To him, this leader of the synagogue, healing, helping someone else get better is work, not personal. This too is more than a little sad. Jesus thinks that it is more than sad. He thinks that it's sinful. Today, many women and gender diverse people face similar gatekeeping in churches, workplaces, within their own families. They are told to wait, be quiet, follow the rules. But Jesus says no. He reclaims Sabbath as a time for healing, liberation, and joy. Aren't we so glad for that joy? Yes. In their post-COVID feminist reading, Godwin, Tuchukama, and Roseda Odegaba say this: the woman in Luke 13:10-17 represents the entirety of woman who is bartered by the patriarchal narrative. The Lucan Jesus was able to remove the structure and set the woman free. They argue that African women and women globally should resist structural violence and reclaim spiritual agency, not just as this woman did by showing up. Jesus' healing is not just personal, it's political. It dismantles systems that devalue others. Carolyn Sharp writes, Jesus speaks of emancipatory word before he puts his healing touch on the suffering of this woman. In Lucan theology, Jesus is a spirit-filled teacher whose words and deeds are prophetic and emancipatory. The Greek verb for straighten is passive, as we talk about her straightening up her body. She is acted upon by grace, but her response is active. She praises God. She stands. She becomes visible. In process theology, healing is co-creative. Jesus invites us into the process of becoming. So I ask, who do you need to see today? What systems do you need to challenge? Where is God inviting you to interrupt the liturgy, to center the marginalized, to restore dignity, and to celebrate healing? If you want my honest answers, I will say this. We need to see each other, those left in this MCC congregation, and I mean really see each other. Right now, I see a sheath of invisibility between us because of interpersonal conflicts, old wounds, misunderstandings, and mostly fear of what the future may or may not have for us. What systems do we need to challenge? I believe that for the modern progressive church to survive, maybe even thrive, or at least bear its purpose, we have to dismantle the style and functioning of our gathering, take a serious look at what we are trying to maintain versus that to which we are called. And finally, I would ask, where do we interrupt the liturgy? And again, for those who might not know, liturgy is. It's kind of a funky theological term. It is the way we do things. The picking of today's verse, for example, was an act in the church calendar, which is part of the liturgy. It's an organization of how we try to make sense of it. Liturgy is how we are the church, or how we do our work, do our worship. It is a very human design. We have a lot of choice. So how do we interrupt it, just as this woman, when we passionately and compassionately question it, that's where change happens. What are we doing here? Is there another form of worship to which God is calling us? Is it about healing? I realize that I leave you oftentimes with more questions than answers. You're welcome. Because it is in discovering the questions and pursuing the answers is where we find closeness with God. That is the co-creative process. May you be part of God's process of liberation. May you see the bent over ones, and may you too stand up straight in response to all that you do. Amen.